Welcome to the Earthworks Podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons for the Earthworks Podcast. I'm very excited to have a friend today, Kevin Hauschel, who is a former superintendent and is currently playing with drones, working for a company called Greensight. I have to, and there you go. You saw some flickering in the background. I have to share with everybody that I am not in my normal studio because the little river town that I live in here in New Jersey was hit very badly by Hurricane Ida last night, and we have lost much power. I'm actually running under a generator right now. I am locked into my little town. We can't get out. We're flooded. The river is about to crest in the next few hours, and we're going to have all sorts of fun times. And I was up until about 2:00 last night with a wet vac sucking out inches of water out of a couple basements. So it's been a fun time. So if I look a little disheveled, and again, not in the current studio, you will know now why. And again, we'll try to make the best of a strange time. All right, Kevin, you ready to talk about what's going on? First of all, introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing right now. And then I'm going to jump right back into who you are. You and I have known each other for a number of years. I think we met when you were up at the Meadow Club, probably with our friend Jeff Roberts. And again, as I said earlier, one of my favorite golf courses in the country. But let's introduce yourself. Briefly tell us what you're doing now, and then let's go backwards and let's talk about your turf background, because you've got a fascinating little resume to work here, and then we want to get into to drones. Oh, and by the way, just so everybody knows, in this little town that I'm working through here with the floods, I walked through town last night, and there must have been 15 drones in the air because they're looking for people who are stranded. And there was a couple. I ran into one guy. It was a EMS group that had drones that were out hunting for, they were saying dogs and people and anybody that could have been stranded, because there's a lot of flooding where we are now. So another incredible reason to play with drones. But anyway, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. Give us a little insight. Who are you, and what is Greensight?
Yeah, so Kevin Hauschel, West Coast, head of West Coast sales for Greensight Ag, or Greensight. And basically, formerly of the Meadow Club, I was superintendent there for last 2 years, but I was there for a total of over 6 years. So,
I didn't know you were there that long. Tell me, let's go all the way back, because you and I were just starting to talk about this, and I love the story. So you went to Washington State, and I didn't even know there was such a degree, but you got a degree in integrated plant science with an emphasis on turf, and this is the best part, and an emphasis on viticulture. So obviously you're a wino at heart, I would assume, correct?
I did move to California, although Washington is starting to make a name for itself. So
some of the best Pinots in the country are up there, right?
Yeah. Oregon, and so it's
Washington and Oregon, yeah. So the most amazing thing you just said to me before we got started was that that was your second degree. Your first degree was you wanted to be a cop, criminal justice?
Yeah, criminal justice originally. So
what was the intent there? What were you going to do?
That was initially, I chose it when I was still playing college baseball. And so I think it was just an easy degree, to be quite honest.
You could stay in baseball.
Yeah, like I didn't have labs. I was really more of a science, driven person. And so it was good for me in terms of learning how to write and, getting a liberal arts degree that way. But it definitely was not what I was passionate about. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So you got the degree, didn't particularly like it. And again, we started talking a little bit, and you kind of told me you went back to school and got a degree in turf and started working on the school's golf course.
Yeah, it was a summer after, I just kind of needed to regroup, and so I stayed in Pullman that summer and worked at Palouse Ridge for Mike Bednar and Todd Lepkes, and it was a cool environment because there was a bunch of turf kids on the crew at that time doing internships, and so I just kind of, nestled my way in, so to speak. They found out that I could do irrigation, mow, cut cups,
All the
whole
things
nine
that are
yards.
needed these days on a golf cart,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So you were among a bunch. So I would assume a lot of those guys on crew were turf students. So you were the non-turf student that came on board.
I was.
Wow, how'd
There
you
was
get that gig?
we would have a few. There was a few each year.
Yeah.
And then we were a pretty, ragtag bunch. You can imagine a bunch of college kids getting
Right.
up at 6 a.m. every day.
Their
It
favorite
was
thing to do. Yeah.
exactly.
Still
It was some fun times, playing golf every day after work, getting a big group together. It was definitely spent a lot of time on the golf course, and I think that's ultimately what made me fall in love with it. And
Yeah.
at the end of that summer, having Mike and Todd sit me down and go, I don't think you're going to be a cop. You might want to get a degree in turf management.
And we
I
could
was like,
use you.
yeah. So
Yeah.
next thing you know, I ended up enrolling and finished my turf degree, but I got some interest in viticulture just because I needed to fill some classes.
Oh, there you go.
To be quite honest. And so I decided it was an interesting subject. And so I started getting into it. And next thing you know, I was like, hey, can I do both or get an emphasis on both of these? And they said, yeah, absolutely. So
Did you ever do anything with the viticulture, or you just went right back?
I am actually, that's what, with Greensight now for the first time, I would say I'm actually using my full degree, which most people cannot say. We're doing a lot of vineyard research and stuff like that. Working with some really, high-end wineries in Napa and Paso Robles area, and then a couple in Washington starting up soon.
Oh, that's very cool. That's very cool. I spent a lot of years. I was a county extension agent, and my specialty was viticulture, only because it fell into my lap, and I like drinking wine. So there's a lot of good reasons to be
very much so.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never met a winemaker I didn't like.
Right, exactly. Although I found many winemakers that I've met, they're all beer drinkers. I'm like, this is disappointing. They're sitting there drinking Becks, and I wanted to drink some of their wine. Nah, we're bored of it. But anyway, so where'd you go from Washington State? What was your next gig of turf?
So I worked with Corsco up at Palouse Ridge. They managed that property, and that's who Todd and Mike worked for. Mm-hmm. And so Scott Carrier actually pulled me out of Palouse Ridge, who is the head of agronomy for Corsco at the time.
Yeah.
Who's now with Arcissus. And basically he called me and said, hey, do you want to come down to Crystal Springs, which is in Burlingame, and work with Darren as the assistant superintendent? And so it was a great opportunity to get to a property that had, a crew of about 5 people, right. 6, 7, including us, but we did 70,000 rounds a year.
Yeah.
So it was a factory, and it just taught me a lot about efficiency, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so it was a great place to cut my teeth into California. Like I always, it's interesting. We always talk about, the money side of, assistants and what they're getting paid, that kind of stuff. And I think back, when I first moved to California, it's over 10 years ago now, I was making $45,000 a year.
You can't live
now, in that now there's assistant positions right now going for about 90.
Yeah.
And they can't get people to film.
Yeah.
And so it's just eye opening to watch how quickly that's kind of changed, especially out west here. It's a very expensive place to, work.
Very expensive place to live. And quite honestly, that's a fair living wage for an assistant for the work that you guys did and do. I think that makes perfect sense. And I know it's not always an easy economic, but with the demand on assistance, the need for assistance. I can't tell you how many times a week I get a call from somebody saying, hey, do you know an assistant? Yeah, I know lots of them, and they all have jobs, and they're not going to come to work for you, unfortunately. But anyway, so from there, I actually I moved straight up to Meadow Club. Wow.
And so I was actually one of those very fortunate people to have started in public golf and end up at a place like Meadow.
So tell us about, a lot of people probably don't know the Meadow Club. Tell us the history of the Meadow Club.
So Meadow Club is Alistair McKenzie's first design in the United States. It was a partnership with Robert Hunter.
What year?
1926 was when but 7 was the opening.
Okay.
So, and so basically 1927 is when the club was officially open. And it's, obviously we, like most golf courses of Golden Age architecture, it was lost and now it's become found again, thanks to Dave Sexton and Sean Tully and the group of members that have really pushed to get it back to the original design.
Truly, I mean, I can't say this enough. Truly one of my absolute favorite properties. I mean, I remember the first time I went on that property and drove around, I was in awe. I mean, it's more than what it's cracked up to be, and it's more than what it's advertised, but it must have been a great place to practice your skill set,
Oh, it's supportive membership. We had, I would say all the tools in the toolbox to do what we needed to do, which most properties and most superintendents, I wouldn't say that they have. And we were able to do things the right way. And that's thanks to a culture that was started from Dave Sexton, who's still there.
Yep.
Part-time, and then Sean. Who's been there 20 years now. So
I didn't know he was there that long. So you came in as his assistant?
Correct. That's kind of been the way things have worked out there. Dave brought Sean in, Sean moved, Dave moved up, Sean moved up, and then it actually is ironic now. Mario, who took my spot, I originally came in to fill the assistant role that he left. So we're kind of doing a Chinese fire drill.
Yeah.
Who knows? I might end up back there down the road.
You never know.
We don't
know.
Wouldn't
be a bad place to be, would it?
No, it's a great. Honestly, it was not the easy decision to leave. To be honest.
Oh, I can imagine.
The membership, everything. Now, don't get me wrong. Love my job that I'm doing now. I get to go visit superintendents, teach them about technology, what we're doing, what I did at Meadow Club with it, etc. And so it's been fun. I actually get to go see people and friends of mine that I had never got to see.
And play with
go
toys.
Visit the properties. Yeah, exactly.
As I keep saying to you,
I see more of Matt Mullenbrook now than I ever did.
Yeah,
and that's and I never would have thought that would be the case. So.
And Matt was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago.
I actually
known Matt for a long time. A good guy. So before we get too far down this road, talk about what's going on at the Meadow Club now with the water restrictions.
Yeah, so Sean and Mario got cut back 40% this year due to the severe drought out west.
Yeah.
And it's severe. So they obviously have done an incredible job abiding by all the regulations, and in fact have overshot them, which is kudos to the team there. And I wouldn't expect anything less from the guys that are at that property. And the membership is, they understand, but it's just one of those things about being a manager out west. It's a real reality. And that's why we were doing Bermuda grass research when we started it when I was there with Dr. Baird from UC Riverside. And we were also doing some of our own research where we were getting different varieties from West Coast turf and putting them in. And
so what's the grass there now?
So right now we have what I call the California 90-year mix, which is 25% 25% bent, 25% POA, 25% ride, 25% bent, or ride, POA, bent, and Bermuda.
And 25% a mix. So you got 125% in there somewhere.
I'm sure. And it's the mix that if you visited Northern California, you see that a lot at almost every property, unless they've done a recent conversion, like a Cow Club or a Diablo or
right. And it's
So
only
it's
25% PO, because I know that's the big battle.
well, it's even less now. I told Sean, I said the one benefit of this is you guys get your opportunity. You've just wiped out
Yeah,
a whole bunch of
that's
start
why
fresh.
God's doing this for us, is so we can get
Exactly.
rid of PO and on the golf courses.
But
So let's get
Good.
right into this. I mean, I keep making fun, but you got a great gig, man. You get to play with toys all the time now, and so Greensight is a company that I'm going to introduce this and then let you run with it. But you're dealing with autonomous drones, infrared technology, and you're doing some soil scout work. But you started this work at the Meadow Club while you were still there. I didn't realize that that's how this all got started for you personally. First of all, let's introduce what Greensight is. Let's understand that a little bit better. Then let's come back to how you started with it at Meadow.
Yeah, so Greensight is an aerial intelligence platform that
I like that title. I like that name.
So that combines aerial imagery with thermal and DVI, and then we also combine that with in-ground wireless soil sensor systems. And so what we're doing is trying to create an ecosystem, so to speak, for the superintendents to basically have control of their imagery, their soil sensor, soil moisture, salinity, and soil temp in real time. And then we're combining that with our drone imagery to kind of give you a ground truthing. And then we use the imagery to kind of help build our systems. And so what we've done is basically the goal is to be more, instead of just going, oh, I'm going to put my sensor in this screen or I'm going to put it in this screen, we can actually show you, and you guys can target where you want to put the sensors based off of the different microclimates that you have throughout your property.
And you got introduced to this company at the Meadow Club before you joined?
Yeah, actually, thanks to Matt Molenbrook, one of his last years of doing the assistant superintendent boot camp at Poppy. They had Greensight. Justin McClellan was with the company at the time, and he actually came and gave a talk, what they were trying to do and how they were trying to use drones to do it. And we ended up having sitting down with each other at dinner that night, and the conversation progressed. And I actually went back to Sean, and I was fortunate. This is the great part about being at Meadow Club and working with Sean and Dave is it was, I want to try this, and I think we can save money doing it. And so it became, all right, we're going to have to say that then. Yeah, we're going to have to cover it in operating. And
you have to have an ROI, right?
Yeah, and so it was such new technology that there's no data to actually have proven that.
Are you a technical geek? I mean, are you one of these guys that likes gadgets and gadgets?
I would say that, I can bore you with soil stuff, and then I can bore you with a bunch of tech.
No, that's my job. Leave that alone. Bore me with technical geeky stuff. I like it.
So I've always just been really fascinated with efficiencies and how we can adopt technology to improve quality of life and or information, data-driven decisions. And I think we've used stuff in the past, like there's, a lot of good stuff. And I love that guys are using, everything from Greenkeeper app to, you name it. But basically, I think in monitoring clip yield and looking at how much fertility they're putting out, these are all great things. But what we're trying to do is be that, final, tool in the toolbox, so to speak. We help cover labor issues. We help cover, decision making that can also improve, financial, prowess at the club, making sure that they're actually using the money to get the most out of it, so to speak.
Yeah. So let's talk about what your first experience was when you were still at Meadow and you brought this technology in. So it had to be a little nerve-wracking because now you're putting your neck on the line financially, but you were confident that there was going to be an ROI. What was the first experiences? They came in and kind of gave you the idea as to what was going to go on. Walk me through how that happens as, now you're an assistant superintendent, the superintendent's working with you on this. What are you thinking? What are you guys thinking when this is all happening? And what were the steps that they did when you were working with him at Meadow?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is it took some sales and some just information and communication on our end to actually communicate that we wanted to try this with our green committee, and we are very fortunate at that time to have a very forward-thinking green chair. Al was the former green chair at Lake Merced that did the big redo initially.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that place is getting redone again, but Dr. Al Oppenheim, he was influential in trusting us and letting, and we had he was coming in after a year where that we had a rough year, just drought year, that kind of stuff. It was just one of those years where we needed to increase our budget. And so we went in and we're looking at things, and this is where that whole idea of having all the tools in our toolbox to respond to anything that we run into. Now, a 40% cut that they're dealing with right now, you can't ever prepare for that.
No.
As much as you want to. But we can do everything in our power in every other year to conserve as much water as possible while still ensuring that we have a quality playing surface, that we're giving the conditioning that we want on a day in, day out basis.
What was, when you started this, what was your expectation at the Meadow Club when you brought the drones in? What were you thinking you were going to benefit from? And how did you pitch it to the membership?
We spend $300,000 a year on water. And so and that's not including pumping costs, and that's not including hand water labor. If we really want to get into the intricacies of how much money you actually spend on water to put it out, to do it, it's an immense cost. And it's really much like you guys have talked about, it's your largest input.
Yeah.
Whether it be the labor side or it's the actual input side on your property. And so it's it's shocking to me that a lot of guys don't actually pay attention to it as much as they should.
We've talked a lot about it here.
And so it's one of those. Yeah. And so once guys start understanding, for me, and Sean, we can be better with our water even more than we are. And we can be more efficient than just having 4 hand waterers 3 times, be able to cover 6 fairways a day. And we're only doing a rotation every 6 days. Well, by the time we get back, that localized dry spot was the same localized dry spot. And we were just chasing their, And so I got tired. That in my mind, it just rings, we're not being efficient. Okay. Right. This is not right. I can do this with less people if I add this technology.
So that was your first take?
Yep.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that first season I was able to pull. We used to have 4 full-time irrigators on the property during the summer months that were just hand watering. Fairways, greens, tees, everything. Okay. And so what we did, and because we ran deficit irrigation, and so we were supplementing whatever else we needed with hoses. And so it was fine up into a certain extent. And then we were like, well, we need to start. This is a lot of labor.
Yeah.
These guys are very experienced, but I think we could use this into, different portions of the golf course that will actually make the members more satisfied.
Yeah.
Little detail things that they see that really don't affect playing conditions, this, that, and the other thing, but aesthetically it makes them feel better about their golf course.
So how did it work? You brought in a handful of drones, a single drone? I mean, what was the procedure?
We brought in one drone. And what we did is the drone lives on property. And so what we did is it automatically uploads, downloads everything. So you have like a little banana gate basically, or a gateway that we, put in, and you just tap into your internet. And basically that's the beauty of it. The whole point of this system and the reason why I was excited about it was, you mean all I have to do is get my drone license and this thing automatically flies the property and gives me the data in 2 hours? I'm like, I can't pay an assistant to poke that many holes in with a TDR and get the information back to me and still input that into the computer.
So when you were at Meadow Club, this was tied into the Soil Scout system.
Yeah, so we added that in about a little over a year before I left.
Okay,
and that was when the partnership with Soil Scout has started.
Let me go back a couple steps here because
Yeah.
you're throwing some cool things at me. But I kind of knew this, but I'm not sure everybody does. You actually need a license to run one of these on the golf course, right?
Yeah, so we have a beyond visual line of sight waiver for the company, but you do still need, per the FAA, a Part 107 license.
Is there a certain height restriction?
We handle all your waivers. We handle all your flight restrictions. We'll actually make sure we investigate whether we can even fly your property prior to coming out.
Are the restrictions based on where you are? I mean, if you're real close to residential, I mean, are they going to restrict you a little bit more tightly?
Not so much residential. It's mostly everything's controlled by the Aviation Administration.
All right. So they're worried about flight patterns?
Absolutely. So it's mostly airports. It's mostly you'll see some stuff around schools. So like large universities. You'll
really?
see some
Why?
stuff. Yeah. Just as they have flight restrictions. So
schools have flight restrictions?
Some do. Yeah. Yep.
Some
of the larger campuses. So
I don't know.
Yeah.
So let me go back to the Meadow. So your focus originally, when you started this, prior to going on board with Greensight, but your focus was really about water management?
Absolutely. And just making sure that we're being most efficient with our water.
So you got the bird in the air and you're flying around the property and you're looking for isolated dry spots?
So yeah, we use thermal imaging and NDVI to decipher what the stress is, because we have NDVI and thermal. If it shows up on NDVI and it shows up on thermal as a heat signature that's hotter, we know that is now drought stress.
Yeah.
If you have an area that is a drive on, drive off that is compacted, right, you're going to see that on the NDVI,
right.
but it won't necessarily show up on thermal. In fact, some of those areas show up wetter because you don't get infiltration.
Gotcha.
So it's understanding, and that's kind of what my role with the company was, I'm hoping we're just trying to educate superintendents on the various uses that this can be used for.
Yeah.
And the thing is what we found was, we saved a ton on fungicides. We saved a ton on
Hey, let's not get crazy here now.
No. We were able to just cut back on certain things.
Yeah, no, as it should be, really.
Well, and no, it was just more sustainable. I would argue that we were overusing. Do you get my point?
Absolutely.
I don't think it has anything to do with, and when you do that, we actually create our own problems. And so in our industry, I think we're all just very reactionary. Yeah. And it's because of, unless you're on a preventative program, which I would argue is kind of a waste of money. You don't actually know what you're doing, and actually you hurt your soil biome, everything, by putting fungicides out on a regular basis.
I don't mean this to sound self-serving, but I'll throw it out anyway. We've worked with a lot of drone companies here at Earthworks where they've actually been able to fly over with infrared and find out where we had put down, some of these carbon-based fertilizers, and it shows up as a cooler spot. I mean, is that common with this technology?
Oh, absolutely. You're going to see, when you're actually doing things right, you will see the cooling effect. Like, here's the thing. Poor performing soils actually end up causing a higher heat signature, end up causing less moisture retention, etc. And so what we end up seeing is, like, when I see a property that's doing it right, they usually have better uniformity, and it's not because their irrigation is better. It's because they have modified their soils or have a fertility program.
Biology
is actually working.
Probably using less. That's fascinating. So let's get into. So you took a job at Greensight. By the way, I love the name Greensight. I think it's just a great marketing name, Greensight. I think it's good. And you were a different name at one point. You said that to me when we first.
It was Greensight. It was Greensight Ag for a while, and then
was there another name before Greensight or other than Greensight, or was
so there is. So we do have. They acquired Turf Cloud, and that's kind of what banged off the whole entire thing with Jason Van Busberg's company. And so Jason and I are actually, he's East Coast, I'm West Coast sales, and Turf Cloud is our job board, which is the the basic. That's how we have this ecosystem, so to speak. We do job boards with Turf Cloud. We do Turf Sight, which is your drone service, daily drone flights. And then we have Soil Scout And so basically, when you combine all three of those things together in our Greensight portal, we're able to give you access to everything from one site. And so,
and the name is just, it says it all. I mean, it's, I love any company, Earthworks, that has a name that really says it. So I'm a superintendent. You're coming into my shop now and you're pitching me on this technology, which I assume, and we don't need to get into numbers, but I assume is not the cheapest thing in the world, but you're pitching me the benefits of you coming in, or what do? You actually loan me or sell me a drone? Is that how this works?
So it's a full service subscription, so to speak. So what we do is we basically, your part of your subscription is you're basically paying for it to have the drone on property. And what we do is basically it's actually really not that expensive. People think it costs a lot more than it does, which is a good thing. But the main thing is what I tell people is what we're trying to do is just help you guys aid in any way that we can. And it just depends. It's property specific. We got clubs down in LA that spend $1 million of water on year, or $1 million on water a year. And so at that point, $6,000 a year to monitor your property, if you can't save that, I'm at that point, I don't know if you need to change a whole bunch of things.
Yeah, right. There's problems far beyond the expense of it.
Yeah, so I would question whether your irrigation system is not just pumping something down into the drain.
What about out here on the East Coast, where we're not spending $1 million a year, and in fact, I'm sitting in a neighborhood where we're drowning in water right now, literally. But I mean, what's the benefit for those who are not in a drought, common area?
Yeah, so what we're looking at there is typically your guys' fungicide budgets are higher. Yeah. And so what we're looking at is what I noticed at Meadow Club was we as an industry constantly go through ebbs and flows on our golf courses, right? Wet, dry, wet, dry, wet, dry. There's never really the idea that we're keeping the kitchen sink full, but we're not over applying, under applying, right? We're kind of keeping the grass, everything right where we need to keep it. But when we do that, we have less fungal activity, we have less plant stress, we have everything. So the idea being is if we become able to actually set thresholds and become more efficient, right? That bathtub doesn't do this all the time.
Right.
And so what ends up happening is the plant is in a much more consistent growing medium or a consistent environment, meaning that now we don't create as much stress. Well, when you're able to do that, you actually are able to back off on fertilizer. You're able to back off on fungicides. You're not having to mow as frequently, the whole 9 yards. And so when you look at it that way, the whole goal as an industry is we're trying to do more with less, right? And that's the idea is what we're doing is if we embrace technology and bring this stuff in, we can show you guys where you need to put this. The ability for us to down the road build prescription maps for your with NDVI for your GPS sprayers. Being able to actually show you, we're working on disease analytics, AI. We have AI involved, okay? And that's what we're working on currently. So this is not the company, and this is the whole thing is, I always tell people is, I got in on the early part of the early adoption curve, right? Yeah. And normally when people adopt technology, it's all the way on right before it ends up being obsolete.
Right.
And so we as an industry is, in order for us to actually push this faster, we actually have to start investing in technologies that are going to show us efficiencies.
Right.
And in order to do that, we just have to, there is going to be we have to work with companies much like Greensight. There's 3 superintendents that run the agriculture side.
Oh, really?
Jason, former superintendents. There's 3 of us. And so we're a company of superintendents that's trying to take this technology and show what we're able to do. And we want to work with different people. I'm doing a project with Matt Mullenbrook. We're doing a project with a bunch of these we still work with Meadow Club heavily.
Yeah.
And we're working to add in different, the ecosystem's not done, so to speak. So we're still adding to it.
Yeah. Help me on. So I got a million questions, obviously, and they just keep coming at me, but it sounds to me like there's not a property that you can't show a return on investment. Is that a fair? I mean, I don't mean this to sound like a sales pitch, but I mean, truly from the usage of this technology, be it drought, be it fungicide, be it whatever it might be. It sounds like what you're doing is being, you can obviously whatever the expense might be, and it doesn't sound like it's all that much. You're going to get that return fairly quickly on. Have you ever had a property, or have you ever turned somebody down because you can't help them?
No, I think like we have ROI studies, from places in British Columbia versus California, and we actually save more money in California than we do up in BC, but they're still covering their drone costs on a yearly basis.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's something to be said. Like, and when you add the soil sensors in as well, what you end up doing is, and that's the beauty of the system, is it's a 20-year, the soil sensor system's a 20-year battery life. So basically, we build a mesh network across your property. You guys can add sensors, take them down, do whatever you want. We can add up to 1,000 on one golf course. There's no need for that.
Right.
And so what I would tell people is, like we've built that out. It's built for agriculture. It's built so that they can move systems from one spot to the other, field to field. If you lease a field here, you can move it over there. It's the same idea. If you have a problem area, we built this so that we build a mesh network.
Yeah.
So that we can tell you guys, it's like I told, we're working with Matt down at Hillcrest, and I just said, I go, hey, if you have a problem area, go put it in there. We can monitor what the soil is. Soil salinity. We can do everything in real time. Well, once you have that data, plus you have the drone, it could be traffic. It could be, maybe your guys hit the same spot every single day. Yeah. I've had superintendents literally look at the image and go, wow, we do that much damage coming from from our facility. Just coming out of the shot. Yeah. Just coming out of the shot.
So
and they wonder why they have a brown area right when they're right there. And it's just traffic.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I've had other superintendents, I had one the other day. We did a demo flight, and he called me and he goes, I'm sold. He goes, I saw a turned off head. And I go, wow. And it's one of those things. When you're able to become more proactive in how you think, there's a whole quality of life thing too. And people I don't even try to like get into that because GMs and stuff. Well, GMs and stuff, though, here's the thing. They don't want to hear, you just want a drone to make your life easier so you can sit at home and adjust irrigation while you're eating Cheetos. Well, the thing is,
I do, as a matter of fact.
And the thing is that they should be able to do that because right now they're spending.
What do you care as long as it gets done?
Exactly. They're spending $70,000,
Let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate here. You got a head that's not working. Why doesn't, one of my crew guys and my assistant see that, when he's driving around? That's, again, I know that's a stupid question, but, I can see that as being a roadblock for you. So flying daily, let me put it this way. An aerial image hides nothing. Right.
And I've told guys, it literally hides nothing. You want the best audit of your irrigation system? Fly it daily with a drone.
Yeah.
Because it will show you. We showed golf courses when they had whole entire clocks that just didn't run.
Wow, really?
Literally. Oh yeah. And the thing is we fly daily. This isn't your one drone flight with your drone that you have.
Yeah.
This is 5 days a week, weather permitting, and we process your imagery in 2 hours as long as you don't have dial-up internet.
So you fly once a day for 5 days a week.
Correct.
How long's the flight? How much data do you get?
Average 18-hole golf course is about 20 minutes.
Okay. So there's got to be some good stories here. Are there like imagery of people doing things they shouldn't be doing and assistants or crew guys sleeping under a tree? There's got to be some good stories here, Kevin.
I can tell you that every person that when we initially start flying, that's what the crew thinks you're doing.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
So there's some education in there too.
I had guys and they looked busier than they ever were when the drone started flying. But no, it became one of the things. They realized that what we are actually doing is trying to make them more efficient in their job and actually aid them. And I've never actually, and that, to be quite honest, that's the one thing that I think like I'd really like to just touch on is the fact that my crew embraced this, I think, even more than I wouldn't say more than me, obviously, but they literally would not look at the imagery. It's
going to be really cool. You see the stuff from a different angle, and you see the infrared, and it's showing you everybody's got to be learning from this.
Oh, it's huge. And here's the other thing is with labor the way it is, we decided to start promoting guys from within. And so I had a bunch of guys on our crew, and Sean, and kudos to Dave and everyone before me. We had a long tenure. And so when you have guys with 10, 15 years experience on the property, and I was like, I can't train anybody. I can't bring anybody in and pay them anywhere, close, they're going to get paid close to what these guys are getting paid. And the reality is that these guys know the property better than anybody.
Right.
And
right.
so what we did is we just kind of went with that approach. And I think now it's still suiting, them, I talk to Mario and all them daily, but, we have more young guys that we brought up, and I think that's going to be the future is, much like how I got into the industry, it was somebody putting their arm around my shoulder and going, you can do this.
Let me ask you this. Again, the more you talk, the more questions I'm going to have here. You fly once a day. Does it matter what, do you fly at the same time every day? Does it mix and match? I mean, does it matter? I mean, what if especially out here, we got a high, dry sky versus a cloudy day. I mean, are there differences of when you fly and can the weather make a difference? Obviously, you're not going to go up in a rainstorm, but.
Yeah. And that's part of the thing is what Greensight specializes ourselves in is we've flown all these different conditions.
Yeah.
And so I can guide them, so to speak, into, hey, overcast day, the information's still there. You still want to fly. The difference is that we have the ability with our dynamic colorization tool. We're not just feeding you an NDVI image and not allowing you to adjust it to make changes to it.
Yeah.
We give you in the portal the ability to adjust it with our dynamic colorization tool, which we run you through.
We're going to see, I don't know how I'm going to do this yet, but we're going to get some of those images from you. We're going to do a 2-minute turf talk on this and introduce that on a turf talk prior to this podcast, but I'm going to steal some of your images and just talk over it and just show some of those pictures as so people can understand what they're looking at. But talk to me about infrared. I mean, I think most people understand what that is, but explain infrared first and foremost, just so if there is somebody that doesn't understand it, what infrared really is doing. But what's infrared doing in this scenario? I mean, how is it used and what does it tell us?
Yeah, so what we're doing is basically we're creating an infrared, which is basically a wavelength, different wavelength. And what we're doing is basically it highlights vegetative material, so to speak. And so what we're doing is putting an NDVI filter on it. And what that does is, so it's a near differentiated index. And basically what it does.
That's easy for you to say.
Yeah, it's not easy to say. No. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I butchered it too.
That's okay. We get it. It's hard.
So what it does is it shows you the chlorophyll content or plant health is what I call it.
Oh, so it's actually that's what it's bringing in is the
monitoring. Yeah, it's monitoring. Yeah, and so what we do is we take that image that we get, and what we do is we kind of put it through our patented processing system and build you an orthomosaic. So what we do is we take, hundreds of images of your property and then we overlap. And what we do is basically remove part of the overlap and focus in each image. So then what we do is build you a giant overlaid map so we have more accuracy. And so what we're able to do is then give you this daily orthomosaic and in the portal. And so what you're able to do then is you can zoom in, you can look at fairway by fairway, you can look at green by green, whatever you're kind of focused in on. We have markers or the ability to add specific areas into frames, so to speak, in the portal. And so the whole idea is with us is when we're able to show you the NDVI is we're actually showing you plant stress. So what we're showing you is at that point is vigor. So basically, is it under regulation? Is it not under regulation? Is it, and so what we were actually able to do is I could actually set up my greens for a tournament to where they were completely regulated, shut down, not doing anything with the drone. So I knew exactly when I had full regulation. So right before an event, I would get them to where they were looking red, and I'll show you an image of it. But
yeah,
basically, the greens were red on the imagery for the NDVI because they're shut down. The photosynthetic pathway was not happening. They were just kind of chilling.
Is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing? I mean,
no, it just meant that it was a good thing for us. It meant that all I had to do was roll to get my speeds.
Gotcha.
Well, at that point, when you're going into a club championship and all you have to do is roll and mow the next day, it was like single mow and the single, it just made it so we were having to, when I first got there, Sean will tell you, we used to have to go out, double verticut, double mow all the time just to get our speeds. And we got to the point where we were not having to chase them. The greens were better. We had 3-inch polo roots throughout the property. Through changes in agronomic plans, a little bit of the chicken poo. I've been baptized numerous times with 545. Let's put it that way. So, and my guys, that's always the joke during aerification time. Who's gonna go home smelling like the chicken?
So, oh, come on, that's an opportunity. You know that
it is. Yeah,
it's a reward.
Yeah. So, and
can you tell varieties? Can you tell where the big pole pot spots are? I mean, do you see all that?
Oh, you on the visual image, like I said, nothing hides. Sports fields that try to tell me that they're 100% ryegrass. Trust me, we can show you you're not.
Yeah, sorry, you're biggest lie in golf. I only have 10% POA.
Exactly. I just said, you know what? We're just embracing it. So, Northern California, 100-year-old POA. It's like, at Meadow Club, we were blessed. I called it, it's like the Oakmont of this side of the country. We didn't have to. California. We had great POA greens.
Yes, you do. Yes,
so
you do.
it was I was fortunate.
Talk to me about we broached this, but let's get into the soil scout part of this process. Yeah. So you're actually coming in and you're sticking explain how the soil scout works. Is it a network? Is it just single sensors? What is it?
Yeah, so we're selling a system. And so what it is what I encourage people, whether you start with 6 sensors, 4 sensors, typically I encourage guys to start with 6, but what we do is we basically build a mesh network. We have a solar base station and we have solar repeaters. And what we are able to do is we basically kind of put a point-to-point mesh network across your property. And what it does is it gives us the ability to download every 20 minutes or 55 minutes, 10 minutes, just depends on what your sample, how often you want to sample. And what we're able to do is we have that in real time and it populates into our Greensight portal, as well as we also have the Soil Scout dashboard, which is just a convenient, if you just want to look at the Soil Scout data, you can look at that. But it allows us to group stuff region by region. We do a lot of stuff we're in pretty much every, a good portion of every premier soccer field over in Europe. And then we also work at, Soil Scout is, a sensor in a lot of other stadiums and other stuff in the United States as well.
And it's integrated with the drones.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so that's the whole idea.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, I've said this on this show many, many times, and I think one of the biggest limiting factors across the country for a superintendent or a turf manager is sodium. And this system is going to identify levels of sodium or just sodium buildup. I mean, at what depth? You're
monitoring your real-time EC. And so what it does is it actually shows you how you're affecting, whether you're actually flushing properly, whether you're actually, and so being able to have it in real time with 20 minute intervals is really in a powerful thing to be able to actually watch how your flush is actually working. What we've actually seen is guys think that they're moving their salts, we're moving it past the root zone 3-4 inches. Well, I put sensors at 3 inches in places and had them flush, and we never saw it even move. And so when you look at stuff like that and guys actually understanding in real time what's going on in their soils,
Yeah.
And what it also does is it just gives you ability to create a threshold. When do I start seeing damage? And so what we can do is start then being more proactive and not hitting it with some calcium or doing a flush prior to it actually causing damage. And that's the hope is, everything that we're trying to do with this, with the drone, with the soil sensors, is give guys the ability to monitor stuff daily, build historical data.
So you've got a data stream that you can follow day to day based
You
on
can
weather.
follow it for the year. I'll show you a photo from Meadow Club where we plan calcium applications based off of our buildup. Well, you want to know why we lost the most grass in July and August? That was when our ECs in buildup was the highest because of deficit irrigation. We weren't putting out anywhere near what ET was.
Right. You weren't
so we just kept the salts building in the upper surface.
Can you monitor bicarbonates with this system? Or
we can't monitor bicarbs.
Okay.
That would be I would be the happiest person in the world.
But you can see with the infrared you can see localized dry spots.
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
In that regard, I'll contend, and I believe over the 30 years I've been doing this, that I think there's a direct correlation between bicarbonate buildup, and it seals the soil surface, and it, microbes die out from under it, and infrared's going to pick that up. So you get to see those local, the bicarbonate buildup, and then you can react to that based on the technology that you're sharing with everybody.
Correct. And what we're also seeing is guys oftentimes don't actually understand when you're actually able to see what you've done. Like you can turn up a head or, try to re-wet an area. And we've had guys do this. They think that they're re-wetting it. And really on the thermal the next day or on the soil sensors, you haven't ever broke the surface tension.
Right.
And in fact, it ran off. And by having that daily drone image, you actually see how you're affecting the health. And that's what we're doing with Greg Elliott in the traffic study for the Giants. The same thing is we're looking at. I flew prior to the concert. We're flying, during right when they were removing the floor, literally that day.
Talk about that. You introduced that, but you're doing a study with the San Francisco Giants. They have concerts on the field all the time, and he wants to understand the traffic of the damage that's the concert, because it's a huge issue for turf managers that have to manage concerts on their fields. And you talk to any guy in that stadium environment and it's just a nightmare, and we've all been at a concert in a stadium where you're standing there and crowded like this. And I'm standing there, of course, enjoying the music or whatever it might be, but then thinking, oh my God, what are we doing to this poor guy's field? So how do you manage explain how you're functioning in that role?
Yeah. So we're just basically the goal is Greg and the Giants, Greg's a very forward thinking guy. I would consider one of the leaders of the sports turf industry and what he does. And so what we've done is he's always been invested in tech and really has kind of always been chatting us up. And so when I came in the role, we were always friends. And so when I came into the role, then we started really talking more and we were like, hey, we could do this, we could do that. And so we started looking and, there's, especially on ball fields, there's an ability for us to really automate them. To be quite honest. And so we're looking and working with him to kind of, figure out what's best to suit their situation. And this kind of came up as he had a concert coming up. And I was like, great, let's fly. I go, because they're going to be working, I think, next season doing the drone full time. And so I told him, I go, let's fly. I'll come out. We'll do a couple flights, do this study. And
this is before they put the platform down. This is
so we flew initially without, we flew the 6th and then we August 6th and then we flew August 20th. And then that was before the concert. So we have 2 days before. And then what we did was right the day that they were removing the floor, August 28th, we went in and shot as they removed the flooring. Well, Greg did that on purpose because he had 2 different flooring types. Well, one of the flooring types that the Giants had initially bought was really damaging the grass. And so we were able to go in and show this. And basically, he walked out, so he sent the imagery to his bosses. And then we went through, and you're sitting there and you look, and everyone's sitting there going, wow, that is not good. Like, and and that's why I always say an image speaks so much more to everyone than, just us spitting data to them or communicating with something like that. If somebody doesn't understand what we're actually do, being able to show them, hey, you guys, the reason why this area is dead is because you guys drive carts over it
right
400 times a day. Well, once they're able to do that, then it makes, then you have backing to put in, barriers or curbing or this and that, right? And things that can actually
tell them to spread or something. Yeah, anything.
Exactly. And so it allows them to kind of create and educate the membership. And it's much like that in the sports turf side. A lot of these guys, they don't understand that this is so damaging. This is a living, breathing organism.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy. There's actually safety issues as well. When you host a concert and then you try to get the field back, well, if they have to resod, yes, it's 2-inch thick sod, but the reality is there's dangers there for the player when they have billions of dollars on the field. And that's when you look at it in terms of that, a lot of these guys are definitely interested in making sure that they can protect the player more while still making sure that they protect the field and still have the concerts. And so it's going to be a really neat study. We do one more flight on Friday, this Friday. Fortunate enough, it'll be right before the Dodgers-Giants game, which will be a good game. So
hopefully you can go.
So, but it'll be fun to get out there and get the final flight in. But that's the whole goal is we're just trying to find and show guys right now what we're actually capable of doing for their properties. And I think we've had a lot of success. I've been traveling a road warrior just up and down the coast and trying to get as many demos out as possible, and it's been received well. I think most guys are starting to understand what we're actually capable of doing.
Yeah.
And it's just an education process. I think we didn't do as good of a job like any new company, marketing. So that's the biggest thing that we've been trying to do in the last few months is just kind of get our name out there.
And what you're doing.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to run up against the clock here, but I want to ask you broached this and you have a viticulture background, but you're doing some work in grapes?
Yeah, we're doing some stuff. It's awesome.
What are you seeing?
We're actually doing a USDA study in Rhode Island, of all places,
Really?
for viticulture. Didn't think we'd be doing one there first, but we're
what kind of grapes? They're not vinifera. What are they?
I actually haven't familiarized myself with the vineyard. But what we're doing is they're working on single vine or single image analytics for vineyards. And so what we're doing is same idea for turf, but going vine by vine using their GPS planting. So we have actually GPS coordinates, so we can actually go image by image and actually do that. So
you can look at individual plants in a vineyard?
Yeah, so we're looking at it, and so basically it just shows up as little circles, but they're color indicated.
Oh, very cool.
So it's exciting. So we're continuing to just move things forward. The AI features, we're working. Now we're really getting worldwide, which is fun. But we're doing almond stuff. We're doing a lot in almonds, strawberries. The soil sensors are being very well received in strawberries. So it's exciting to, I never thought I would, I love being a superintendent, love Meadow Club, but, I never thought I'd use my full degree in the way that I am now.
Not many of us have. I'm one of the few as well.
Yeah. So I'm very fortunate to, and that's the next big step is get this stuff into agriculture. But it's a fun company to work with. I mean, Greensight does a bunch of military contracting and contracting work as well.
What's the military? I mean, what do they do? Just look for enemies.
You name it. We use our. What's unique about us is just kind of our avionics platform.
Gotcha.
So our automation and all that kind of stuff is very interesting to a lot of different people. And so we like to build custom drones and do things for different applications. I'm fortunate, we have 3 guys on our side that are superintendent based, but the rest of the team at Greensight's engineers, and it's great to
that's a good way to
be able to kind of go. It's great because all we have to do is we have access directly to them. So when superintendents come with ideas, it goes, okay, hey, can we do this?
Hey, Kev, we got to wrap this up, but I assume you guys are going to be at the national show in San Diego.
Yes,
so we'll be come find you there. What if somebody wanted to find Greensight? Where are you guys on the web? I mean, how do they find Greensight?
Yeah, so greensightag.com is currently
greensightag.com. Okay.
Yep.
And a lot of guys in the industry know you, so they could certainly West Coast guys know you fairly well. Hey, I can't thank you enough. I think this is the coolest thing. I mean, I was really excited to get you on because, we like geeking out, and when we talked to a couple of folks about you, we thought, this is a perfect conversation. And I think it's like you said, I mean, the one thing you said a couple of times, that this is just another tool in the toolbox that can really help out and visually see where things are working. And when you compare it to what you're doing on the ground, anytime you bring in more data, I mean, we talk a lot about soil data, obviously, and building streams of soil data. But this just takes it to a whole another height, no pun intended. But I can't thank you enough. Please stay tuned with us. We're gonna do a 2-minute turf talk, and hopefully show some pictures on that. So stay tuned with us. And if you are not subscribing to the Earthworks podcast, I certainly would encourage you to do that, because we get really cool people on, like Kevin, who can talk about toys in the air and stuff like that. Kevin, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this goes extremely well for you, and enjoy the Road Warrior. I know it's a different life for you, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. You get to do a lot of cool things.
Yeah, absolutely. It was honor being on, and I look forward to anybody that wants to get a hold of me. Obviously I'm on Twitter. I'm on, you can get me Kevin Hauschel or khauschel at greensightag.com.
And that's Hauschel. I got that right finally. Yep. Thanks, Kevin. Correct. Kevin, thank you very much. Thanks everybody for watching. We will be back next week with another Earthworks podcast. Thank you so much.